over the last few years, I've come to realize that the lie wasn't the first lie. It was just the lie that really caused the fall. But before that, the devil, the serpent, was chattering constantly. And he was constantly talking to them about who they weren't and who they were, who God wasn't and who God was. And everything he said about them and about God was a lie. None of it was true. But they listened and listened and listened. Remember, we talked about obedience and my definition of obedience from just analyzing the Greek word, that obedience really means submission to hearing, submission to hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing. It's the we are all obedient, Lee. Everybody is obedient. There's nobody that isn't obedient. We're very obedient. The problem is what we obey. And we don't understand that our obedience to the wrong subjects really takes control of our lives and determines who we become, who we live like, who we think like. And so I I learned that in the Old Testament, they were listening, they were obeying the wrong voice. They had listened to God, they had been taught by God, but there came a point in time at which God released them to go live what he had taught them. And instead of protecting, guarding the garden, which included them and their minds, they listened to the chatter of the serpent. If you've ever read C.S. Lewis's Perelandra, it's a great illustration of how the darkness deals with all of us all the time. We're hearing this chatter all the time, and it's always telling us things that aren't true. And what happens is, in obedience, we hear it, but then we start telling ourselves what we've heard. And then other people tell us those things, and we start repeating it to ourselves. And so obedience is listening, hearing, and then meditating, pondering, thinking, talking to yourself about what you've heard. And that process is how every one of us has become who we are in this world. And many of us, who we are, in fact, all of us, who we are in this world is not as good as we could be. It's we've people keep talking about how we're fallen. Well, for certain purposes of discussion, yeah, okay, we're fallen, and we're not living up to who we are, and we don't know how to live up to who we are, and we keep obeying like God has told us to obey, but we're obeying things that we shouldn't be obeying. Obeying is not doing what you're told. That's what everybody thinks obedience is. It's not. It's submitting to hearing and hearing and hearing. It's like when Paul was telling wives, obey your husbands. He wasn't talking about do what your husbands say. And everybody thinks that's what he said. That's not. He was telling women that there's a societal problem back then, and women were not educated, and a lot of times they just ran their mouths, yap 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 yap. And Paul was telling the women to obey their husbands, listen to them, give ear to what they're saying, not necessarily do what they say, because what they say to do may be wrong. But the women were supposed to listen to their husbands, just listen, and submit to the hearing. So that means you listen and you think about it and you give ear to what the husband says. The husband was supposed to be the most educated, and that's all that is, obeying. And so anyway, back to Romans 21:25. I realized that I had believed the lie because of what I had been told as a little boy, that I had to know everything, that my dad never taught me. He told me I was supposed to already know how to do everything. If I didn't already know how to do it, I was condemned. And it's like, Dad, somebody needs to teach me. And that's why, as I came to know God, and especially over the last decade, I've, I want a daddy that will teach me. I want a God who's my father, who loves me, and he'll teach me because I need to be taught. Lee, I've got to be taught. I'm ignorant. I'm stupid at times. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. And I just want to be taught. If I'll be taught, I'll do what I'm taught. And that's been my attitude. But it was the learning about the lie and that I had believed I've got to be responsible and I've got to make everything right and I've got to do everything perfectly and I'm never going to be good enough when I realized that I felt those ways just because I believed a lie and that God loved me unconditionally and there was nothing I could do that would make him hate me and that he was that I was okay, that I was that my problem was I was believing lies. Not just that first lie, but I was believing all the lies that came after it.
Right.
Man, oh man, what a what a wonderful thing to discover.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was wrong, and I found out I was wrong, and I was glad that I found out I was wrong.
Oh boy, yeah. That was the best day of my life.